I didn't realize we bought the cold weather package. Welcome back to the Lost Cause Ranch. I told you the next video would not be a very heavy one. That is right, it is lightweight time, and can you believe, instead of buying another Project Land Rover, we're actually working on one. I thought I was gonna be able to just push this guy in because, you know, it's a lightweight, but it doesn't actually roll that well. Yes, that radiator coming out means it is time to start sorting out how we're gonna power the lightweight. Now, if you remember correctly, this thing does actually run. So you may be asking, with having how many other non-running Land Rovers, why on earth would we take apart one that actually runs? Well, it runs, but just doesn't drive. And we put it into a gear, it dies. That is right, this guy has a locked up torque converter or something of the sorts, and it is also the incorrect engine, being an old Buick V6 that just doesn't quite fit right. Now, it wouldn't be too terrible to solve the torque converter issue. I mean, from the inside here, we can see most of the transmission. We could yank that out and sort it pretty easy. Only problem there, as you can see, there's no transfer case. So to the front axle, we have a similar drive shaft to the one that was installed on the rear axle of the 6x6. A two-wheel drive Land Rover just isn't quite my jam. And with the way everything is set up, even if we wanted to add a transfer case to the scenario, adding some length to the drivetrain and shortening an already short drive shaft is gonna make a bad situation worse. So we're gonna go ahead and get this V6 out of here and figure out what we got going on. And I think we may have a more appropriate power plant for this guy sitting over at Ted's. So last video, we pulled most of the body panels off, including the hood, and just look at how much real estate we have to work on. This guy, compared to a normal lightweight, I can lean over and reach across the entire engine bay. So pretty much all we have left to do is to take the front grille radiator support assembly out of the way, and we're gonna have so much room, I'm not gonna know what to do with myself. So this is the automatic transmission cooler. With the new setup, we're not gonna need this. There is so many zip ties. Back. Missed one. I'm still caught. All right, now we're free. Now that really opened things up. We do have some additions that will have to be added, I believe. Radiator was sitting on that guy. We'll get rid of that. Do something a little bit different. Engine favors this side quite a bit. Chet's soaking up the last bit of sun. Now we disturbed them, but it is 65 degrees out in Iowa in November. Odd. If you leave the bumper on, you got a nice little seat. You know, the more I work on these things, the more I think I need to convert the entire collection over to series trucks. But what do? The exact opposite. That oil definitely looks like it has a ton of runtime. There's our shifter going forward. That's not the shifter we're gonna use. So I think everything is undone, minus the engine mounts. We got one there, one there. Then we should just be able to pluck this guy out. One thing to note, the best thing I have ever purchased at an auction was this assortment of plugs and caps. We got the water pump, the other outlet, fuel lines blocked off. Keeps everything nice and tidy while doing stuff like this. Not only did we get that, but for $3, we got that whole assortment there. Well, that's inconvenient. I didn't really intend on putting this guy on the hoist, but we'll bump it up just enough to give us the clearance we need. That should work. These short wheelbase series are just odd to put on a 2-post hoist. It's not a whole lot of real estate in between the wheels and on the flat part of the frame, but we didn't need a whole lot of height. Way less room on this side. Come on out. Drop it right into the oil. Good spot for it. Guess at least it wasn't the drain. You guys ever have it where your fingers just quit working? Happening more the older I get. All right, I think we are ready to come out now. But I've been known to be wrong before. There we go. It's just pretty much pulling itself out. I'm thinking this might end up being in the way, but we shall see. Almost forgot one thing. We're gonna suck the transmission fluid out. That probably would have made a mess out the tail shaft. And GM, in their infinite wisdom, doesn't have a drain plug in the pan. Why? And hopefully that keeps things much cleaner. I typically don't need much help making a mess, so. Looks like we gotta take the little bracket off. The starter's trying to occupy the same space. Try and let the transmission down a little bit. There we go. Wow, that's nice. Well, we did manage to catch one thing. I am much better at catching things while removing engines versus when I'm fishing. It's an oil pressure sender, and surprisingly, I did actually undo this guy. See, it's right there, it's undone. I just didn't feed it out through. And we managed to find another zip tie. We'll put that in the zip tie collection, and we'll get this guy. Wow, another freaking zip tie. All right, well, set that guy there for now. Now we should be able to swing this thing out. There we go. Whoa. Wants to go back in. Stop. Stay. Why? What the heck is going on here? How about that? That guy has a pretty compact little motor, or I guess engine you should call it, but it is only like 15 inches long to the front of the block. If I haven't mentioned it before, this is a Buick 231. It's kind of an oddball thing to throw in here. These guys only have like 100 horsepower. So in my opinion, not quite worth. But to be honest, had this guy had a transfer case off the back, I probably would have kept the Buick engine in there. This thing's been through some stages in its life. It also had a Buick V8 in here before, also known a Rover V8. So if it wouldn't have been a massive amount of rework to get the 4-wheel drive working again, this little guy would have probably stayed in there. It ran so well, and it's kind of quirky. And we kind of like quirky things around here. So obviously you saw it was super simple. And like I said, I need to convert to all series trucks. I would get a lot accomplished around here. This guy, if I were not taking the time to record it, would probably have come out in about an hour. And if we're talking anything besides an air-cooled Volkswagen, engine-wise coming out in less than an hour, I'm all about that. But this guy is up on Facebook Marketplace to get it out of here. We don't need to store something we're not gonna use. But either way, now that that's going away, let's run over to Ted's and go take a look at what I think is a good choice to stick back in here. You guys may remember this thing. I mean, I guess it is a Land Rover. Yes, this is that half of Santana that Ted bought. And this was purchased before the lightweight was ever in the picture. But one of the reasons it was purchased was knowing that someday this stuff here might come in handy. And this is exactly what we need for the lightweight. The missing manual transmission and transfer case, along with a little 2 1/4 4-cylinder. And by the injection system here, you can see that this is a diesel 2 1/4. Not quite as powerful as the gas or petrol version, but we're dealing with a direct injection system, not a carburetor. So there's a little bit of upside there for when we get the lightweight off kilter. But this is an 80s Santana, so I believe this should be a 5-main bearing. but we're gonna have to check and see. Obviously, I'm not a series expert. I'm sure you can tell. We got a lot of extra parts with the lightweight, but anything that we're missing should be sitting here, including a new starter. And as you can tell, that was okay and tested. Best kind of starter. This right here, also gonna help out a ton. So that is right, although it is not the correct engine for the lightweight, the lightweights did come in a 4-cylinder petrol or diesel originally. So I think this guy is going to be much more fitting for the lightweight in several areas, in correct appearance and feel, and physically fitting compared to that 6-cylinder. Man, this makes me super excited. It is almost like it was meant to be. So the good thing about having multiple Land Rovers and multiple Land Rover parts vehicles, especially between both Ted and I, is you can kind of just have stuff fall into place without having to go search for the stuff. We just had to go search for it in one of Ted's garages. All things considered, for the wrong engine, going in the right car, this was done fairly decent and not a complete botch job. Like I said, it's had a few different renditions throughout its life, so it's gonna have some ticky-tack stuff to take care of, but we're not going for super original, so I'm glad we have a nice new painless harness to start off from. We'll do a bunch of cleaning up on that. The gentleman I got it from has a bunch of additional stuff to complete the wiring, including some nice braided loom. The little Landy just quit driving before he could test everything out, make sure it works before he cleaned everything up. But we'll go ahead and get everything sorted out. And since we're gonna go with a little more correct Rover 4-cylinder back in this guy, we're gonna go ahead and remove a few of the added bits. You would not believe how much better this thing rolls. Too well, almost. Without the drive shaft in there, you see, the problem was this thing was at such an extreme angle in there that as it was rolling, we were having some U-joint bind, and the thing was just fighting itself. We're gonna pick up some horsepower, or at least lose some loss of horsepower. Lose some loss. But I'm continuing to make a mess here, mainly there. So we need to get the cooler lines for the automatic transmission out of there. That's gonna require removing that floorboard. You wanna hit the trigger on the... That works. So we just had this clamp holding those guys down so we can get rid of... I'm making a mess. Dang it, Joe. Thought I had them better drained out than that. Who hired me? I do like these little aluminum hose clamps though. We'll probably end up reusing those somewhere on this guy. So I think we are also going to eventually ditch this fuel tank. It looks to be a nice little tank, but I don't think I want it sitting there. I think we'll go back down underneath the seat in this area like a standard short wheelbase series truck normally has. And now that we got the new CNC press brakes semi working, or at least working for now, I think we can make a custom stainless job to sit underneath there nicely. And that'll help out twofold because we'll get our entire cargo area back here in order and we'll be able to build our roll protection and also just not have a fuel tank right behind your head. But another major benefit is gonna be where the weight of that fuel sits. So you're gonna have better than 100 pounds moved from up high up here, above the floor, down below, underneath the floor. We're also gonna ditch these guys. These remind me of the roll bar, and it almost gives me PTSD. But next up, I want to take all the wood paneling off. We got that as door panels, and on our little side seat area here, I just kind of want to assess what we're working with underneath here, make sure there's nothing glaringly bad hiding. That's gonna end up in a tire, so that's nice. I do like these little add-on armrests though. Luxury cruiser. Oh, gotta take all the screws out like normal. I missed one. Oh, we got insulation. I didn't realize we bought the cold weather package. Passenger side is also a cold weather door. So I guess we got some high quality British plywood. Now we can make some cabinets with that or something. But I mainly just wanted to see what the condition was underneath all this stuff. I didn't want to have something that holds moisture like wood. We just got a bunch of dirt and debris that can sit underneath it. No need for that, but I am happy seeing the doors are generally in good shape. We got nothing rotting away. All the bottom lips are clean. We can get everything cleaned up. And once again, we won't have something holding a bunch of stuff inside the door that can get wet. We had that insulation, we got dirt, we can get that wet, and even just condensation will start rotting this door frame out. So glad we caught that in time before it becomes a headache. And I am generally pleased with how this thing is. It is overall very solid. The frame looks to be in really nice shape throughout. It has a nice thick coating of undercoat throughout. The bulkhead is in pretty decent shape. These are a little odd being it's a lightweight. It has this extra little wing out front here. We got one little spot there, looks like. Down here looks good. And on the other side, we got some missing paint and what is the start of what looks like some corrosion. So I think we will address that ahead of needing any serious repair. The rest of the bulkhead looks good. We won't know for sure until we pull the hinges off, but cursory look, nice shape. Rest of the bulkhead looks decent. We've had one spot on the floor patched over there. We'll probably repatch this just in one piece instead of a couple little guys, but that's actually not too bad. The only real thing on the chassis appears to be back right there, which is hard to see. Let me get a light on it for you. We got a little bit on the rear cross member, but we work our way up this way and everything else looks generally good as long as that thick undercoating isn't hiding anything too scary. So the rear cross member will have to be addressed, but that doesn't bother me. I think we're gonna do something different anyways. Something shaped a little closer to the normal series with this angle up, a little better clearance. Because our goals with the Lightweight have slightly changed since we purchased it. When I purchased it, I was thinking it would just be a cool cruiser. After Ted and I went out and did Pritchett Canyon in Moab with those other series guys, the best day of off-roading I've ever had. We have new goals. It's gonna be a nice simple setup, but we are gonna have the guys at Original Iron build us some axles that can handle something like this. With the massive 60-some horsepower that diesel engine's gonna output a relatively small tire. Small in the grand scheme of things, not necessarily small for a series truck. This thing should be a fairly bulletproof, fun thing to take out and go blast some trails with. Now, I'm not exactly sure how I'm gonna tackle getting this undercoating off. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know. Looks like someone went after it with a pressure washer at one point in time. I would like to get it off so we can start fresh. And we're also gonna be doing some tweaking, welding, and a tiny bit of modifying on the chassis itself. So having this thick stuff off there would be beneficial. Our electric pressure washer we have mounted in the car wash is dialed in for washing cars. It is not going to touch this stuff. It only does about 1,000 psi, just a high volume. So I'm thinking we may have to try and get the gas pressure washer out and see if that touches it. Yeah, it doesn't even phase it. Now this guy wasn't really dirty by any means. I just wanted to knock off the little bit that we did spill on it. I'm making a mess. I haven't been doing a great job staying off the internet. We did just score ourselves an old worn 5687 off the old Facebook marketplace. This was in town. It needs going through, but everything for these is available. This is similar to the Bellevue 6000 and an earlier rendition of the worn 8274. It'll look the part up front on this thing, plus the speed and the sound those things make is just the jam. We are now sitting in a much better place. Everything's cleared out of the way for that little diesel that's sitting over at Ted's. And once that's in here and we get a chance to drive it, we'll see how that is. It may not be the end all be all power plant that's gonna motivate this thing forever, but that little guy is gonna be a good thing to get set in here and everything all sorted out. And then in the future, if we need a little bump in power, we're not that far away from sticking a 19J in, or even a 200 TDI. And a 200 TDI would be all this thing ever needs, at least for me. If we ever need ourselves a big power series, I'd rather do it with the Nada. But really, that little half a Santana that Ted picked up, not only is the side of it going to decorate the car wash in the office nicely, the power plant is going to make the lightweight what I want it to be. Then Ted still has a nice solid chassis and axles, because I'm sure we'll find something else in the future that needs it. But on the front of the little 2 1/4, in the next video on the lightweight, we are going to play a little Derek from Vice Grip Garage and get our fancy fuel system set up and throw a little juice at this guy and make sure this thing actually runs before we go through the trouble of swapping it into lightweight. At the car wash, we have the original drive shafts for the lightweight, so if this thing fires up, we now have a cooling system, a complete drivetrain, and that thing will be on the road in no time. We even got a parking brake. With all that being said, I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate you subscribing, and man, has this thing been fun to work on so far. And I just can't wait to see what happens to this thing in the future. We have a lot of cool Land Rovers around here, but this thing just might be the coolest, at least for today.